Welcome everyone to CivilNet. We're thrilled today to be joined by Ambassador Nina Hachigian, U.S. Special Representative for City and State Diplomacy. She is here in Yerevan this week leading a delegation of State Department officials and mayors to launch a first-of-its-kind U.S.-Armenia Local Democracy Forum. Ambassador Hachigian, thank you so much for joining us.
Thrilled to be here.
So you are the first special representative for city and state diplomacy at the State Department. In that role, you lead and coordinate the department's engagement with mayors, governors, and other local officials around the world. What exactly does that work look like day to day? And more broadly, why is it important for the State Department to be engaged globally, but on a subnational level?
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. I want to convey how exciting it's been for me to be in Armenia these last few days. But let me answer your question, which is that so day to day, my team and I answer a lot of requests from local officials, from mayors, from county officials, from state officials who want to know something about global engagement that they're involved in. So it could be, I want to get in touch with a city, that we used to have a sister city relationship with. Can you put me in touch with them? Or I have a constituent that is, in a conflict zone. Can you help me figure out how to help them? Or I am I'm a governor, and I want to write a kind of a memorandum of understanding with an African country on agriculture. Would you take a look at this document? So all kinds of requests from all across the United States. So that's a good part of our work. And then the other part is answering requests from State Department officials all over the world who want to have a strategy themselves in what we call subnational diplomacy. Not my favorite term, but it's the term of art that we use. Or that want to get in touch with U.S. officials for whatever reason. So that's kind of our bread and butter. And then we do, some other kind of big events of various kinds. Last year we did the City Summit of the Americas, which had mayors from all over the Americas come together and share lessons and meet each other, along with our Secretary of State and others. So, yeah, that's the kind of work that we do. And then, of course, we're here in Armenia.
So I'm glad you bring that up. So specifically for Armenia, as part of your visit, there will be new city and regional partnerships agreed between Helena, Montana and Stepanovan, Scranton, Pennsylvania and Armavir, and Michigan and Dovich. I'm curious, what factors drive the selection process, and what tangible results can communities in Armenia expect from partnering with U.S. jurisdictions?
So in terms of the selection, we thought about cities or states that already had connections to Armenia. So some of them are along on this trip as well, or that had diaspora, or that were particularly interested in democracy. So that basically, that cross-section and intersection was what drove our process. And in terms of tangible results, it's a little too soon to predict what is exactly going to come out of it, because they're meeting each other for the first time. I will tell you there is tremendous enthusiasm on both sides, an incredible amount of positive energy. The local officials in Armenia have received our officials with incredible warmth, and they got down to discussing topics pretty quickly. So it's everything from tourism and how to develop tourism to cultural and arts connections, to emergency preparedness, to how to, on both sides, how to keep citizens interested in democracy and engaged. That gives you a sense. Permitting, like how to permit, how to support local business. So those are all topics that are on the table for various partnerships, and now it's up to them to decide, how to make that concrete and what it's going to look like. We and my team, we are very careful never to tell anybody what to do. That's not our job. Our job is to provide advice, to provide opportunities, platforms, but it's really up to the local officials to make decisions about how they want to carry cooperation forward.
Right. So you're connecting them, but then it's on them to
and we'll
move
be there
forward.
to support and help and guide and ask and all that. But yeah, they are, federalism is strong in the United States and they get to make their own decisions.
That's fantastic. So speaking of U.S. jurisdictions, I also want to ask about Los Angeles, of course, which you and so many other Armenian Americans call home. I understand you actually previously served at LA City Hall, focusing on international affairs. And as part of your visit, officials from Yerevan and LA met this week to discuss prospects for cooperation, particularly in Armenia's burgeoning IT sector. Mm-hmm. I think if we're speaking about U.S.-Armenia subnational diplomacy, pardon the language.
Yeah, that's the term.
LA Yerevan is probably what comes to mind first for people. So what can you tell us more there?
So the official that came over from LA is a friend of mine and an incredible public servant. He is a wealth of knowledge about how to use technology to improve governance and to serve citizens. And so that is sort of the framework for the conversations. And now it'll get into more detail about what areas Yerevan particularly wants to dive into. LA has been awarded, #1 digital city many times. It's strange. You would think that, smaller cities near Silicon Valley might have that distinction, but what's different about LA is that it's really about serving the residents of LA. And how do you do that in the best way possible? Which begins with, what do they want? And then you decide how to serve that rather than the other way around. It's I think, tempting in the tech world to build a whiz-bangy cool thing. But if no one is using it, then that's not the point. So anyway, they're having conversations that are ongoing. And I have a lot of faith that this will produce something useful.
That's fantastic. A bit more broadly, last week the United States and Armenia agreed to upgrade bilateral relations to the status of a strategic partnership commission. That's a deeper and more comprehensive format of cooperation. In Armenia right now, I'm here on the ground speaking with folks. There are a lot of eyes on the upcoming US presidential elections, and frankly worries about how US policy in the region may change in the event of a change of administration. Of course, I'm not going to ask about politics, but I want to ask, what can you tell us about the continuity of US foreign policy and the durability of the bonds that you are working to create here?
I agree with you that US-Armenia relations are as strong as maybe they've ever been, and they're getting stronger, and it's really gratifying to watch. And my being here with this delegation, the Deputy Secretary of State being here this week, the strategic dialogue now, partnership, last week, it's all pointing in that direction. I will say that, though, that's only a piece of the relationship. Really, this U.S.-Armenia bonds are about people-to-people ties, about local leader ties, about artist ties, culinary ties. We had a California cook here this week too, Mary Sue Milliken, chef, I should say. And she and I judged a contest together at the culinary school. So these are incredible, memorable experiences that will tie our countries together for generations to come, and those cannot be broken.
So I'm actually glad that you brought up the delegation that's here. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that delegation, about this trip, about the Democracy Forum, the talks that you've been having with officials here, as well as again why the State Department is so interested in engaging with local officials here.
Why don't I take a step back and give you the kind of broad picture about why the State Department created my office. It's only 20 months old or something like that, not quite 2 years old. And I'd say there are two primary reasons, maybe three primary reasons. So first, there is a big conversation that happens around the world among local leaders. There are conferences and forums and network organizations, most of which are dedicated to sharing best practices, particularly on energy transition and climate change. Mayors and governors get together from all across the world all the time to say, I want to buy an electric bus, for my area, but I don't understand how to do that. I don't understand how to build a charging system that's going to support the bus. How do I do that? And another mayor will say, well, I did that, last year, and this is how you do it. But countless examples of that kind of best practice sharing. It's not ideological, it's not political, it is just practical. How do we help our community? And it goes across the board in anything you could possibly think about in terms of what makes good quality of life, what makes cities and regions run well. There are local officials talking about those things. And the State Department, from my perspective, I want American mayors to have the benefit of that too, American mayors and governors and county officials. So that's part of it, that there's this big conversation that is already happening, and we want our folks to be able to take advantage of it too. Another is that we know when local officials engage globally, they bring back great things for their constituents. It could be jobs, it could be cultural ties, it could be, as I was saying before, like good ideas. I mean, we see the beautiful, friendly dogs in Yerevan, and I also saw them in Gyumri, that have the ear tags. Like, that's a brilliant urban innovation that, you take these dogs, you treat them and let them go again, and they are these lovely ambassadors for the cities. So that's a tiny example, but it happens across the board. And then finally, I'll say that there are now these threats that know no borders, right? COVID, the effects of extreme weather that unfortunately you've experienced in Tavush, the cyber attacks. These are all global phenomenon, but they end up in places, and local leaders have to deal with them. And so at the same time, the State Department is also dealing with them, also working on these same issues. And so it made sense to kind of connect the dots and have the experiences of both problem solvers reinforce each other.
Absolutely. I also want to ask you on a bit more of a personal level about what it means for you to be here in Yerevan, promoting ties between Armenia and the United States as an Armenian American. What's your impression been, and what has surprised you the most so far?
Oh my God. It's incredibly gratifying to be here and to hope that I'm doing something positive for this place that has so many ties to my identity. I don't think I'm exactly surprised by the warmth and the hospitality, but it is still overwhelming how incredibly generous everybody is here, from the government officials to to the local officials, to the just regular people are just so warm, so generous, so welcoming. And I know that our local officials really felt that. They feel honored and connected, and that's exactly what we want. There's one thing I'm surprised about, which is the number of coffee shops in Yerevan now, because that's changed since I've been here in the last 5 years, and I know my husband's going to be very happy.
Well, on that note, Ambassador Hachigian, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for joining us on CivilNet.